How's it going, everybody? This is Seth with the Well Earned Comforts podcast. I just wanted to drop in here real quick before you start listening. Just a heads up, this is an audio only podcast. This is the backlog from Sam and I's read through of the Children of Hurin from about 2023. So it's pretty old, well before we started the YouTube channel. So yeah, give it a shot. Let us know what you think. Just really trying to upload the backlog. So appreciate you being here. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll go from there. Take care, guys.
Welcome, my lords, to the Well Earned Comforts podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Seth.
Thank you for joining us on the walls of Isengard as we explore the many works of Tolkien and discuss life. We're glad to have you as part of our fellowship, as there's no telling where we'll be swept off to. We are so excited. This is a really quick turnaround to be podcasting again, just 1 week away. It's hard to get our schedules in alignment with Seth and his work and my work and Seth's kid and my foster kid, and just finding time alone in solitude where we can nerd out together and have our little therapy session. But yeah, let's do some babbling like Butterbur for a little bit. Seth, what's going on?
Not much. Just spent the last little bit trying to, when you texted me and saying you were getting on, I was rearranging the gym in the basement, trying to make it a little more space efficient because I want to build a little play area in the basement for Evelyn so that it's like a safe spot for her to wander around while we're in the gym.
I love that.
Working out. Yeah. And so I was moving stuff around, and Amanda put her down for a nap like an hour and a half ago and came down and was like, "Hey, you're making a lot of noise. I just put Evelyn down. Can you not?" And so I was like, "Oh man, I wanted to be done with this, but that's why I was a little bit late. So I appreciate the patience on that. But I think
Absolutely.
I think the gym is gonna come together. I think it'll be a little bit more of an efficient layout for it. So I'm excited for that.
No,
But
that's super cool. That way you can just work out and just look over and make sure she's good to go rather than having to schedule it during naps or other things like that, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly. My goal is to build, as weird as it sounds, like a little playpen type of thing where she's kind of confined to a space, but she's got all her toys and some little storage areas for stuff that might interest her. Because we want her to watch us working out. I mean, growing up, I want her to see it. I want her to realize that working out and training and taking care of your body is something you do at a baseline. It's not something that you should pat yourself on the back for. It's something you do as part of a healthy life.
Absolutely.
So
I love that. Yeah.
I think putting a play area in there, associate play with working out, and hopefully watching us over the years, it'll work for her. I don't know. We'll see though.
Mm. No, that's really good. I love that idea. You said so that she can like run around and play a little bit. Is she moving around already?
Not yet. She's still relatively sedentary other than she flips over and then she'll flip back, but she hasn't started crawling or anything yet.
Yeah.
So she has started sitting up on her own. You have to put her in the position and then she can hold it for a little while until out of nowhere she just kind of smiles and falls over and waits for you to catch her. She knows that you're going to catch her and she's not going to get hurt, so she just kind of smiles, and I think she does it on purpose, to be fair. I think she
Probably.
really enjoys it.
It's a kid's favorite game is trust fall, random trust fall.
I'll play this game with her where I have her on my knee at the table, and then I'll just yell like, "Oh no!" and I just drop her and then catch her, 5 or 6 inches from the floor, and then I bring her up, and her face is just glowing. It's adorable.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. She seems to have kind of turned a corner just this last, not yet, maybe 2 days ago, where she is just smiling and not laughing quite yet. She's making like a puff puff sound. So she's not really laughing yet, but she seems to have turned a corner where everything is just making her smile with, her little teeth that have just barely started to break through. So
Nice.
it's fun. It's fun.
It's super cute.
Yeah. What about you guys? How's everything settling in with your foster kid and everything with that?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. The thing right now is just trying to find our rhythm. That's one thing that we had really, really well, obviously, when it was just Ariel and I, and we could work out when we wanted to. We could, just chill when we wanted to, go out when we wanted to. And so now just trying to figure out how to do that. I mean, he's 15. He's definitely independent enough that he can stay by himself for an extended period of time, but we also don't want him to have to do that. And we don't want to put him in a position, too, where he might be tempted to do something that he shouldn't do or, something like that. So as we're still building trust, trying to figure out how to love on him well and also just also make life not boring for him either. I don't want him to just feel like he has to be up here playing video games all day. Like that's all he can do. So we're trying to just look into ways to be creative and stuff like that while also trying to figure out a good routine for us and having enough time for one another and working out and making sure we're taking care of ourselves and obviously working and all that. So it's just been kind of a process. I know this last week was just, I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like, I don't know, there wasn't something that I was like, wow, this was really cool about this last week. It was just kind of, going through the motions and we did it. We got through the week.
Kind of a feeler week where you're just trying to find your new normal.
Exactly. Yeah, there's nothing exciting, nothing terrible or anything like that. Just kind of meh.
That's fair enough. I will say I have one gripe about weather. It is the middle of January in Michigan, and there's no snow on the ground, and it's like 35 degrees and it's raining almost every night. I do not get it. It is pissing me off. Like, just
you were promised snow.
I just give me the snow. Give it to me white.
Nice. No, I totally get you. I mean, obviously we wouldn't expect snow here in Kentucky, but it has been raining just about every night. And today was 60 degrees and humid and rainy, and it was like thundering. And we actually the other night we had a crazy thunderstorm happen like at 2 a.m. and we were sleeping and it goes off and Ariel squeezes me and I freak out like because I heard it. It sounded like either a car crash or a bomb or something like that. So I just jump out of bed. Like what's going on? What's wrong? She's like, it's thunder. I was like, oh, okay. And then we couldn't go to sleep for the next hour because it was just that loud, like every 10 minutes or so. And so it was pretty nuts. But yeah, definitely not like the winters we're used to.
I know, and even last year up here in Michigan, like it's around this time it snowed. Well, a couple of weeks prior to this time it snowed, and that snow stayed until it melted in like the end of March. So I'm waiting for the snow. It's weird having thunderstorms and rain in the middle of January. Like that's not a January thing.
Yeah, we even got a tornado warning this morning for like southern Kentucky. It was
Jeez.
Like there was circling in the clouds and stuff. Nothing touched down to my knowledge, but yeah, it's just like what's going on? This is so different than what we're used to. But
yeah.
That is the updates on our lives as it has been a week. So I always talk. I mean, I don't know if people actually listen to us babble or if they just skip through us, but I mean, you can skip through it if you want to. Like Seth and I, like we don't really do a whole lot of talking before we podcast. So this really is our time just to be like, hey, what's going on? Like because I care about you. I want to know what's going on in your life. And so, but yeah, hopefully you enjoy us babbling. I hope you do. Be clever at times. Very rarely, I suppose, but.
I don't know that we're the most interesting people, but I mean, hey, you never know.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into a more interesting segment, perhaps Riddles in the Dark. Obviously, we grab one piece of dialogue or characters from the 3-part Lord of the Rings book that we have and see if we can figure out how to stump the other person on who's talking, what's the context, and hopefully even a chapter if we can get that far as well. Seth has been completely blowing me out of the water recently. Like I think he's gotten the last 4 or 5 right, and I've gotten with hints maybe 2.
Well, I mean, I know these books. I know them. They're near and dear to my heart.
Well, me too. I mean, I don't know. I guess I maybe haven't listened to them as much as you have. I've read them probably more than you have, but have you actually like just actually read all the way through them?
I've read The Hobbit, The Fellowship, and half of The Two Towers. Gotcha. But I listen to them probably 2 to 3 times a year.
Yeah. I just need to bite the bullet and get Audible or something and do that. But anyway, enough babbling. As we said, we were going to stop babbling.
I was thinking too. I was like, I wonder if people actually listen to the segment if other people are good at this game too. It's just like a random game. I mean, there was one night months back where I handed the book to Amanda and I got 3 in a row and I was like, this is fun, keep going. And she was like, no, this is you're depressing me, put the book away. And so I'm like,
sexier
I wonder
if
yeah, I wonder if other people, get these correct or actually enjoy it. I don't know. If you do, let us
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Let us know if you're keep track of your score if you're listening, and we'll compare it to our score, and we can make a competition out of it. But I will go first. I'm gonna go find a piece of dialogue here. Okay, this one should be fun. I maybe shouldn't give you too many clues, but nothing we've already said before or anywhere close to it. Do I want it? Do I want it? He said, as if puzzled, but his arms were trembling. What would I give for it? What do you mean? We mean, he said, choosing his words very carefully, that is no good groping in the dark.
Come on.
I probably shouldn't have gotten that. I shouldn't have said that last part. I should have. I
I
should
mean,
have
I
stopped
knew.
at the beginning.
I feel like I knew what it was before that. This is now I'm drawing a blank on the orc's name, but it's not. Oh, what's his name? I forget that orc's name. It's when he's going after Merry and Pippin looking for the ring.
Yes, you are correct. His
Or
name
well,
is
uh,
looking for what they had.
yeah, and Pippin picks up on his guesses and then eggs him on.
Yes,
So that's in the Two Towers. It's when they're, captured by the Uruk-hai on their way to Isengard. But
that's
what is his
literally the
name?
name of the chapter is the Uruk-hai.
The
So,
the Uruk-hai. Oh, sweet.
but his
Ah, shoot.
name,
That's a hard one.
Gr-
Grishnach. Yeah.
yeah, there it is.
I
There
kept
it is.
thinking
Yeah.
Gorbag, and I'm like, no, that's not Gorbag.
That's
Grishnach.
Return of the King. Grishnach. Actually, no, it is Two
Grishnach.
Towers. Gorbag is. He's in this. No, it's Return of the King. Never mind. Forget
Yeah, Return of the King.
it.
You're good.
Well done. Another point to Seth.
This
Ding,
one
ding, ding.
actually, I think, is going to be pretty challenging. So if you get this, I'm going to be impressed.
Well, okay. All right.
It's just where I randomly open the book up to. Okay.
I think you're looking up the most difficult.
Maybe you just suck at this. I don't know.
It's a possibility.
But this one, I'll give you a pass if you don't get it. All right. It will take days to clear the road like this, he said. What's to be done? Have those eyes come back? That last sentence is what's going to give it away.
I assume those eyes are hinting at Gollum, is my guess, and you're not helping. I hate how you just you do this well, maybe.
I mean, no, but you're
Nazgul, maybe.
No.
Okay, not Nazgul. Have the eyes come back?
Not to be seen, said Blank, but I feel they are looking at me, or thinking about me, or making some other plan, perhaps. This next sentence, you'll get it. Do you want another hint?
I mean, I have some guesses, but I'm sure they'll be wrong, so yeah, please.
You want to try?
Well, not to be seen. I'm gonna guess it's Frodo is in the conversation, and part of me wants to say, but you said it wasn't the Nazgul. I was saying part of me wants to say Farmer Maggot when they're hanging out with him, but it's not that. And then part of me wants to go Mines of Moria maybe, but I'm no. Okay, what's the next line?
All right. This next line, you should be able to get it. If this light were lowered, or if it failed, they would come again quickly. Speaking about the eyes.
I don't understand. I'm completely lost right now.
Tripped in the end, said Sam bitterly, and his anger rising above the weariness and despair. Gnats in a net. May the curse of Faramir bite Gollum and bite him quick.
Is this in, I guess, Shelob's lair then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
I
when
was thinking. Yeah. Okay. They're.
I told you that's a really hard one. But
no, I should have got it. That was
dumb. Have those eyes come back. That's kind of the giveaway that they're referencing spider
not
eyes.
Just two eyes, it's eyes. Yeah. I get it.
I mean, two eyes is eyes. It's still plural. There's two of them.
I know, but spider eyes there are lots of eyes too. It's not just two. Never mind. Whatever. Well done.
That's a good try. That's a good try, though.
Darn. Well, on to more merrier tidings. We have some tidings from the Fellowship. We have a Tolkien story from our good cousin Caleb, who actually is a composer of music, and he has reached out to us and said he wants to do a podcast on the music of Lord of the Rings. Howard Shore specifically, I'm sure, is what he's talking about for the soundtrack of the movies. So that might happen in the future. Stay tuned to that. But he gives us his wonderful Tolkien story that I don't know if Seth has read yet. So I'll go ahead and read this to him. But he says, "Hey guys, my Tolkien story. My dad introduced me to the works of Tolkien and Peter Jackson from a very young age when he purchased the extended edition of The Lord of the Rings. Good, there's no other way to watch them. He would show me different clips from the film, making sure to keep them PG. I was continually fascinated by Tolkien's world. Eventually, as I was old enough to watch the film in their entirety, and became absolutely obsessed with both the films and the books. I had read The Lord of the Rings, The Appendices, The Hobbit, and The Silmarillion by the age of 14.
That's
Perhaps the
impressive.
most, very impressive, especially The Silmarillion.
Yep.
I remember going to their house and like him reading it in the morning when we'd wake up, because they'd always wake up before us when we spent the night there. He'd
Yeah.
just be reading
Yeah.
it. I'm like, what are you, that's crazy, man. Anyway, perhaps the most important influence, however, was the music from the films. I grew up in a musical family and was writing music and playing piano at the age of 7. However, it was the work of Howard Shore in The Lord of the Rings, which at the age of 12 made me decide to pursue music composition in college and as a career. In many ways, I do not know what my life would look like had I not seen the Lord of the Rings film or heard the music. It could have been very different. I continue to enjoy Tolkien's works to this day and am continually excited to discover new insights in his stories and mythologies." Thank you, Caleb. That is absolutely wonderful. I think Seth and I can both agree that what our lives would look like had we not experienced Tolkien. It's such a small thing to think that a fantasy story like this could actually shape our lives so much, but it really has.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of crazy that he was writing music at the age of 7. I
Yeah.
remember going over their house and stuff, and they would always, I mean, whether it was piano or guitar or whatever, singing, pretty much everybody in that family is just musically gifted. And I don't know, it'll be interesting once we eventually get him on to hear him speak about Howard Shore and how it impacted him, because to me, I don't have a musical bone in my body. I love the music, I love listening to it, but I don't understand it. And Caleb is somebody that actually understands music.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we've had some short conversations about it, but I mean, similarly, the only thing musical I can do is whistle. Like I can't play any instruments or anything like that. And so I'm always amazed to have those kind of conversations with him and the insights that he brings. And it was always funny growing up. Like we were the sports people and they were the music
Yep.
people. I mean,
Yep.
don't get me wrong, the Linvilles are completely outdoors kids, and they are super fit. They do all kinds of climbing and biking and skiing, and I mean, but like the traditional sports, that was us, the hand-eye coordination, and then yeah, the music and creativity definitely on the Linville side of things.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing that, Caleb. That was interesting. I look forward to the time where we get to actually talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we'd love to hear if you're listening and you haven't sent anything in yet, please do. Please just send a quick little email to weckpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear how you got into Tolkien and what influence it has on your life. Like Caleb said, his life would be a lot different had he not experienced Tolkien and the works that has begun. Well, again, thank you, Caleb, for sending that in. Let's jump into our next section, the meat and potatoes of the podcast. We are jumping into chapter 5 of our story, well, Tolkien's story, rather, Children of Hurin.
We're kind of picking up the story a little bit down the road after we left off. So last chapter, Turin traveled from Dorloman in Hithlum, which is kind of, what is that, like northwest of Doriath. And he was sent to Doriath by his mother because she was scared of what would happen to him, and she wanted him to be raised by the elves and be well taken care of. So at this point in time, Turin is all alone, aside from, he's the only man, I should say. He's a man amongst elves, all by himself in the land of Doriath, being the fosterling of King Thingol. So at this point in time, Turin was in the care of Melian, who, if you remember Melian the Maya, she is married to Thingol, but he really didn't see her much. He spent a lot of time in the woods and just enjoyed exploring and going around. At this point, he's still, a young child around the age of 9. And there was a elf maiden named Nelas. Is that how you would say it? Nelas?
Nelas, probably.
Nelas?
Yeah. There's
Ayla
actually
sounds better.
in my book, there's like in the first couple pages, there's like a pronunciation guide. So I've been trying to use that, but I mean, just
I've
like all
tried
of
to,
other
and
Tolkien's works, it's still confusing.
yeah, for sure. Well, either way, Nalos and Turin spent a lot of time together as Turin was growing up, and she taught him a lot about creatures of the woods and how to navigate the woods. And she also taught him Sindarin, which was the elven language that was spoken in Doriath. And Turin actually ended up growing up very swiftly, and for a while he was happy. And as Tolkien put it, eventually he fell again under shadow. And as Turin spent more time in the halls of Minigrath and turned his focuses towards the deeds of men, so he was really kind of concerned about, kind of like we've discussed before, that the elves, they're not really worried. They have long lives. They're going to wait for things to come to them, whereas men are the movers of Middle Earth or of Beleriand, and they're the ones that actually have to get things done.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how Tolkien says like the shadow kind of fell upon him again, and it just goes to show like you can be distracted from your crap for only so long. Like he understands, like he was old enough to remember what happened to him, why he had to leave, the cry from his mom, like he remembers all that. And sure, he was distracted by all the wonderful things. It's kind of like going on vacation for a little bit. Like it's like, okay, cool, we're in a new place, I'm being taken care of, well fed, all this stuff, no worries, as it would seem. And yet he's still remembering his past and worried about his family. And like that cloud just covers him. And I totally get that. I mean, I see that with our foster kid. Like, we've given him everything he needs, and there's still just kind of I don't know, a sadness about him that obviously just comes along with his circumstances.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, in a sense, Turin is running from his doom or his fate, which isn't him running necessarily. He was ordered to do so by his mom, but
Hmm.
eventually you have to turn and face it. And I think even at a young age, Turin is starting to realize that and notice it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and so Nelas was actually interesting. She only would be in the woods. She enjoyed spending time with Turin, and actually, as weirdly as it sounds, kind of, I don't know. It almost seemed like she kind of had a thing for him as you read the chapter, even though she's, an older elf maiden at this point.
Yeah, she's a
Um,
weird character. Like I was at first when I was reading this, I was like, why is Tolkien even putting this person in there? Because it doesn't seem like, I mean, she comes back, and now I see why it makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, she's just kind of this very strange character. But she really did love Turin, and she played with him, which is just weird. And then they played together a bunch, and then she watched over him.
Yeah, exactly. And as Turin grew older, she refused to go into Minigroth. She did not like the caves and the halls and the bright lights and the busyness. She just liked to be secluded in the woods alone. So whenever Turin would go out, she would watch him, but she would watch him from a distance, which was different from when Turin was younger, and she would actually play with him and interact. Now she just kind of watched him from afar. And during this time, when Turin would go to Minigroth, he actually ended up spending 9 years in the halls of Minigroth, and he grew tall in stature, surpassing all the elves. So this is kind of interesting, the body differences between the elves and the men. But Turin was definitely a specimen of a man, and he was growing into that. And he spent time gaining wisdom and listening to the valiant stories of old, which you can only imagine kind of inflamed his desire to go be valiant for his own people.
Yeah.
Um, but during this time, he also received tidings from Morwen. So Morwen would send messengers, and Thingol would send messengers, and back and forth. And so he got to hear that his mom was still alive. She was still doing okay. His new sister Nienor was born, and she was growing in beauty as this little baby. So I think that helped comfort him, but he still was having, this shadow coming over him.
Mm.
And during this time, Beleg, the strong bow that kind of found him and his companions in the forest before Thingol decided to bring him in, he would come to Minigroth, and he would seek Turin out, and he would take him into the woods and teach him archery and craftsmanship and the sword, which his favorite was the sword because he didn't have he wasn't subtle. He didn't have good. I don't know that I wouldn't say fine motor skill, but he didn't know his own strength, and didn't have patience. And so the woodcrafting and things of art and craft, he didn't have an aptitude for it.
Yeah, he wasn't smooth. He bull in a china shop kind of guy.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. He was a bull in a china shop. And this is kind of interesting just because I feel like growing up, mom told me that all the time. Like, hey, Seth, be careful. You don't know how strong you are. You don't realize how strong you are, Seth. Be careful. And she would tell me that when I was, wrestling with you or Steven. And she would know that, you're about to get hurt if I didn't tone it back a little bit. Or, I was shooting a mini hockey ball around the room and she's like, I have really breakable, precious moments on the shelves. Please don't. You don't know how strong you are. You will knock them down. And unfortunately that did happen.
Happened a lot, yeah.
But kind of as Tolkien describes, if you remember the Curse of Morgoth towards Turin, that like nothing would go correctly in his life, that even if he did something properly, it would work out for evil in the end. And so Tolkien said, in other matters also, it seemed that fortune was unfriendly to him. So often that what he designed went awry, and what he desired he did not gain. And he also had a horrible, horrible time making friends because he was kind of a solemn guy. He was a Debbie Downer. He just didn't really speak much and didn't laugh much. And that shadow was just kind of weighing on him all the days of his youth.
Yeah, definitely. But there was a lot of people who, I mean, the people who really knew him, the people who like spent time with him, like Beleg the Strongbow, like Mablung, who we're going to talk about, they loved him. Like they truly loved him for who he was. But he's kind of the guy that you have to spend time with in order to see that, to get past the stern exterior and just kind of get to know. Because he's a very complex character, very, very complex guy. But there was one person in particular that he did not get along with. And it's not really of his own doing at all, really. This is a guy who's just looking for trouble. His name is Cyros, I think is how you say it. Saeros. Cyros. And this dude, he was just a straight up fool. Like, he was super cocky and he didn't care for those he deemed that were less than himself. Like, if he thought somebody was worth less than himself, he would put them down, he'd tease them, he'd just look down on them. But he was also a friend to another jerk who we've spent a little bit of time talking about, Daron. If you remember, he's the minstrel that hated Beren and was in love with Luthien. And so it's no shocker that these two blockheads would get along and enjoy each other's company and counsel. And so both of them hated the race of men. They didn't understand. I mean, why would we bring in this unhappy race is what they called them, like an unhappy race, which, I mean, makes sense when you look at Turin's composure and stuff. But they just have disdain for men, but specifically the kingsmen of Beren, because of all the drama that had happened with Beren and Luthien and everything that went down there. Even though, if you read the story as we have already done, it was mainly Thingol's stubbornness that brought on most of the craziness that happened. And Melian even said that was going to be the case. Like, it's because of you, Thingol, that this all is going to unfold. And yet Daron and Saros are both just blaming Beren's kingsmen for this, and because of that, they just don't take kindly to Turin at all. They think he's not worthy to be in their halls of Menegroth. And so whenever Saros would see Turin alone, he wouldn't do it in public, but whenever he caught him alone, he would speak in arrogance and disdain for him, egging him on, kind of like a middle school bully would do. Like, I see that a lot on Wednesday nights with our students. We have one kid who, just poking and prodding at another kid. And I'm like, dude, just stop. Like, you're not that cool. That's what I tell him. Like, yeah, you're not that much. Like, there's no cool level here. And I think that's kind of how Saros feels. Is like feels like he's so much cooler than Turin here. And he's trying to get him to react. And yet Turin, he grew weary of him. He didn't like him for sure. But he returned ill word with silence, as Tolkien says, which I love. I think that's a great lesson for a lot of us, as we see there's just such a reactive tendency nowadays, whether it be online or in person, for people just to react to ill words with other ill words, fight fire with fire. And for a long time, Turin just was like, yeah, whatever, you're not worth it, and wouldn't even say anything, walk away, But for some reason, somehow, Saros was actually considered great among the people of Doriath, and he was a counselor to the king, and so he was well respected. And so you kind of think, in public, he maybe talks to Turin and speaks highly of him to all the other people, but then behind closed doors, he hates him and tries to egg him on. But Turin's silence, whenever he would just kind of turn around and walk off, displeased Saros as much as his words, and so he was wanting a reaction. He wanted Turin to freak out so that he could point blame and be like, "See, this guy's messed up. He needs to get out of here. We need to kick him out."
Yeah, which I think it's interesting that he's a counselor of the king, which if you think back to the story of Baron and Luthien that we did a podcast, well, I think it was 3 episodes on.
Yeah,
Go
3.
back and listen to that. But Thingol was very much of the same mind towards men. If you remember the conversation he had with Baron, calling him all these different names and insulting Baron like crazy.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, Saros is, he's a counselor to the king. And I wonder if, he had that position back when, he got it prior to Thingol's change of heart. And he just kind of kept it because he is deemed a wise counselor, even though they may not agree with like his prejudices at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that could make perfect sense. Obviously, Thingol's had a huge change of heart through the acts of Baron, and it was so near and dear to him too because that was his daughter, that everything went down with, and I guess Saros is probably still on that prejudice side of like, look at what he did. He brought a raging wolf to our lands who was trying to like devour people. This is not good. We should not have men like this in our city. But yeah.
Yep. So we'll kind of transition to the rest of Turin's life. This chapter kind of skips around. You don't really have
Not the rest of
time
his
frames.
life.
Well, is it the rest of his life in Doriath? I should say.
Yeah.
It just kind of skips around. It's like, okay, he's 9 and now he's 17 and now he's 20. Like there aren't distinct timelines really. So Tolkien says that when Turin was about 17, he really became to get that shadow was really, really starting to weigh on him. And then grief was forefront of his mind because all the messengers that Thingol was sending, that Morwen was sending, had just stopped. And the roads became incredibly dangerous for any messengers to try to cross between Doriath and Dorloman. And Thingol basically was like, I've sent out a bunch of messengers. They never returned. It's just not worth it anymore. I'm not going to keep sending, my people out to die. Yeah. And so this really weighed on Turin. And he was worried for his mother, Morwen. And he was worried about his sister, Nienor, who he had still not met yet. And he brooded about the downfall of the House of Hador and the people that they were and the power that they once had, and he's the heir to this house, and here he is in exile in an elven kingdom. And at this point, he decided to approach Thingol and Melian, and it's interesting when Thingol looked upon him, Tolkien says that in place of his fosterling, a man and a stranger, tall, dark-haired, looking at him with deep eyes, white face, stern and proud. So it seems to me like when Turin walked in that room, his mind was made up about something already, and he came in, and Thingol was just caught off guard by like the change that had come over Turin in this brief moment.
Yeah, and I wonder too how present he had been in his upbringing, because I mean, like you said, it's a very condensed timeline of he's 9 now, he's 17 now, he's whatever, but we didn't really hear any interaction with Thingol at all. Like it sounds like he spent most of his time maybe with Melian, because Melian saw him a little bit, and a lot with Nellas. More brought up by females. And I guess that was kind of Tolkien's reality too. Growing up was mainly just brought up by a lot of females, and then obviously the boarding school that he was at. But yeah,
that's interesting. I don't know. That might be part of it too. Is Thingol really had talked to him for a while, and then out of nowhere, he's picturing this little boy that he rescued, that he sat upon his knee, and all of a sudden he's this 17-year-old. He's grown not quite to his full stature, but he's real close, and he's a presence now.
6'3", jacked out of his mind.
Probably. And so the conversation just carries on, and Thingol basically says, all right, why are you here? What do you need? Why are you here to visit? And Turin says, I need mail, a sword, and a shield to match my stature. And he also said, and I would like to reclaim that which is already mine, the dragon helm of Dorloman. Which all these things indicate that he's wanting to march out to war. Yeah. And in learning of this desire to go after his kin and everything, Thingol, or I'm sorry, Hurin, as he's discussing this, he requests that Thingol give him some soldiers to go with him because can only assume, but I'm guessing he wants to go up to Dorloam and rescue Morwen and Neonor and bring him back, or make war against the Easterlings that are ravaging his people.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's requesting a company of men to do that or elves to do that with. And Thingol basically says, "I'm sorry. I'll give you these things. You're a man. You can choose what to do with them, but I still rule my own people and I won't send them out."
Yeah. Which is
And then,
fair. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean,
yeah, especially because Thingol has seen, Turin is 17 years old. At this point, Thingol is one of the oldest elves.
yeah.
I mean, I think he awoke at Cuivianen, like with the firstborn. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he is ancient and he has seen how things go, so in his own wisdom, he's like, it's not going to work. I'm not going to risk my own people.
Sure.
And again, Melian has just stores of wisdom that nobody listens to. But she basically says, "Hey, you can leave through the girdle of Melian because you were brought in, so you can leave. It won't hinder you, because you're welcomed here first." And Thingol looks at Turin and he's like, I understand what you want to do. I get where you're coming from, but if I were to recommend it, I would say go to the North Marches with the elves that are fighting up there against the orcs and make trial of your strength and your prowess. Basically saying, like, don't go off on your own yet. Your body isn't to full stature. You're not at full strength and you haven't fought yet. Like, you need
Mm-hmm.
to gain experience before trying this. This displeases, Turin a bit because he wants to go on his own mission.
Yeah, he's a
And
very impatient person.
yeah, exactly. He wants to go do his own thing. And Thingol is basically saying, just go try this out first. And then he kind of looks at him and he says, "There's little hope that one man alone can do more against the Dark Lord than to aid the Elf Lords in their defense, as long as that may last." Which kind of makes you think, like, Thingol's just accepted that they're fighting a losing battle. Like,
Mm.
we're on the defensive, we can't go on the offensive. And if you think this is right after the Nir Naiath Arnoidiad, right? So
Right.
this is right after the elves and men tried to go on the offensive, and Thingol's basically like, we're fighting a losing battle now. We're never going to be able to push forward again. And it's funny because at this point, Turin brings up Baron, and who is akin to him, and he's like, "Well, Baron did," and he brings up Baron, but he doesn't mention Luthien. And Melian actually steps in because Turin basically says, "Yeah, well, Baron did," and Melian steps in and goes, "And Luthien."
I love that. I love that. When I read that, I just chuckled because I mean, yeah, it's a total jock move to just be like, "Oh yeah, well my kin has done this," and she's like, "But yeah, you forgot she. How many times did Luthien have to revive Baron? I mean, Baron was dead at least 4 times probably in this quest, and yeah, so she's like, "Come on, you can't just be like." You can't call the Baron card and assume that you're gonna be fine because it was not just Baron. And I love how
Yeah.
Tolkien just explains like no, Luthien was that powerful. Luthien was that necessary. Just kind of evening the playing field a little bit.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And she continues. She goes, "Baron and Luthien. But you are overbold to speak such things to the father of Luthien. Not so high is your destiny, I think, Turin, son of Morwen, though greatness is in you, and your fate is twined with that of the elven folk. For good or for ill, beware of yourself, lest it be ill." Which, when you hear that, it's like, first of all, it's kind of a slap in the face to Turin, because he's probably imagining, deeds of greatness, of rescuing his family and doing harm to Morgoth and all these different things. And Melian's like, "Yeah, you have greatness in you, but it's not to that level."
One thing I noticed too when she's saying this, she says, "Not so high is your destiny," and yet everywhere else Tolkien talks about Turin's future as his doom. I mean, we'll get to
Mhm.
that here in a little bit, but I don't know. I think that's interesting how even though she has such foresight, she maybe doesn't understand what the entirety of outcome of Turin.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I wonder if that's like a mishap in Tolkien's writing. Maybe he didn't make that clear, or maybe it was intentional to show that, you know, they still don't understand everything that's going to happen to Turin.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I don't know.
that's a very interesting observation. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, like nobody listens to Melian, and if people just did, they life would be so much easier for elves and men alike. I mean,
Yes.
Melian just she is so wise in every way, and people just ignore her counsels, and it just gets old. And then she ends by referring to herself in like the third person, and she says, "Remember the words of Melian. It it will be for your good. Fear both the heat and the cold of your heart, and strive for patience if you can. The heat and the cold of your heart, and strive for patience." And if you think about Turin as a character that we've learned a little bit about his personality, he is very hot and cold already,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
is incredibly impatient.
Yeah.
So at this point, Turin kind of he's like, all right, maybe you guys are right. So he decides to go join the North Marches, the elves on the North March, the North Marches to do battle against the orcs and kind of understand, you know, his own strengths and his limits and everything. And he was a good friend of Beleg, who was the, you know, the craftiest woodsman of the age, and it's said that Beleg was the only person that could match and even exceed Turin in his deeds of valor against the orcs.
Yeah. I mean, he proved himself a mighty warrior. I don't know if he could have done all the things he said he was going to do by himself, but he did prove that he had a lot of skill and a lot of gifting when it came to, you know, swordsmanship and just courage and bravery. Whether it be bravery or stupidity, we'll decide later on. But after 3 years, he comes back to Menegroth, unlooked for. Like, he didn't tell people he was coming back, but he needed rest and his armor was damaged, so he needed some repairs. And so he was like, yeah, I'll just go back to Menegroth. But just so happened, Thingol and Melian were away in the Greenwood on a vacation. Now, Seth made a point to say that this Greenwood isn't capitalized, so this isn't the Greenwood of Mirkwood that turns into Mirkwood. It's because that would be really, really far away from Doriath and
Hearthstone.
Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, when I was reading that, I was like, they were in the Greenwood, and normally you hear Greenwood the Great, and that's in reference to Mirkwood.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, that's so far away and it's not capitalized. I really don't think that's what Tolkien's referencing, but I don't know what he was referencing.
Yeah. It could just be like maybe the Greenwood is just a very pretty place to rest and hang out and enjoy little romantic dinners. And
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Anyway, when Turin did come back, he didn't care about what he looked like. He actually looked like crap, and he just kind of barges in, walks in. How do you think about the elves? You think of how fair they are and how I assume clean they are. I love the extended version of The Hobbit. It's not necessarily in the books, but like just the interaction with the dwarves and the elves when they come to Rivendell, and just how grimy they are. And you got the elves playing the harp in front of them and eating like the green foods, and the dwarves are just like going crazy. And the extended version, I don't know if you've seen it, but they actually like there's a shot of all the dwarves naked in the fountain, like
Yeah.
messing around. Like, obviously you don't see anything other than maybe a dwarf tush or something like that, but I was just like, yeah, that's kind of what I picture when Turin walks in, just completely gruff, doesn't care what he looks like, his hair's unkept, he's probably smelly, he's probably super sweaty, you know. But he walks in and he's like, I'm hungry, like most men are, and so he takes his seat to eat, and he actually takes Saros's seat unintentionally because Saros was late to the meal for whatever reason, and he didn't know. He just grabbed a seat because he wanted to eat, and but Saros believed that Turin had done this on purpose and out of pride. And Tolkien says that in his anger, he was not lessened to find that Turin was not rebuked by those who sat there, but was welcomed as one worthy to sit among them. So he's sitting among these, you know, again, high elves and people of valor, people of wisdom, and they're okay with him sitting the way he looks and the way he smells.
Yeah, I think that in this situation, all these other elves they know who Turin is, they respect him, they want to hear about his deeds, they want to hear stories, they want to hear what's going on. He's been gone for 3 years. And so they're like, yeah, fine, you can sit there, but this is Saurus's seat. And when he gets here late, if you think about how prejudiced he is against Turin already, he's just going to take it personally right off the bat. And then the fact that his friends and fellow elves aren't, like scoffing at Turin for showing up to the meal with his hair unkempt, like that's really bothering him, that he seems to be like the only one that's irritated by it.
Yeah. Do you remember when we used to have family dinners, like how we all had our spots?
Oh yeah.
Dad was at the top, mom would be at the left, then Sarah to her left. You would be at like the bottom of the table, and me and Steven had the bench all the time. But I
Yep.
remember like I'd try to beat you to dinner, I'd get in one of your seats and it'd be like, nope, get out. Kick like you just kick me out of the seat. And
Yeah, that's very true.
so I guess people do get mad if you cop their seat like that. So Saros is like, what the heck, man? Um, but he feigned polite speech at this point with Turin just to, whatever. But it was clear he was mocking him. And eventually Turin grew weary of Saros's speech and the light and the laughter of the halls. Again, he's just got this shadow upon him, and he was away for a long time and he's missing his mom. And so he just kind of frowned. He wasn't pointing it at Saros necessarily. It wasn't intentional to be like, gosh, Saros, just shut up. But he just like, the weight of his circumstances kind of leaned on him, and he just looked in Saros's direction, I imagine kind of glossy-eyed, and just frowned at him. But Saros, of course, took this personally, and he said out loud, he said, "Doubtless, man of Hithlum, you came in haste to this table, and may be excused of your ragged cloak. But there's no need to leave your head untended as thick as a thicket of brambles." And to this, Turin made no reply, but turned his eyes to Saros, and in them were, as Tolkien says, a glint in their darkness. So he just kind of looks at him like, really, dude? Are you gonna go there?
This is where we're going.
Yeah, he's like, all right, try me. Mess around and find out is what those eyes are saying. And Saros didn't heed this warning, but he continued. And this is where, the straw, the camel breaks the back of Turin. This is where all these, the poking and the prodding has finally kind of come to a culmination when Saros says, "Well, if the men of Hithlum are so wild and fell, of what sort of the women of the land? Do they run like the deer, clad only in their hair, assuming like, they're naked, they're not running around without clothes on?" And Turin was like, all right, that's it. And he takes what Tolkien says is a drinking vessel. So I'm wondering like maybe a ram's horn or something, and chucks it at Saros's face. And it just it pulls him backwards. And he falls back, just got hit in the face with a drinking vessel. It's amazing. And Turin drew his sword, but Mablung was sitting at the table and he's like, oh, hold on. Like, guys, calm down. Saros gets up and he shouts back in the hall, and he says, "Wood woes," and he throws out a bunch of other things at Turin. He's really, really upset, and rightfully so. He just got smacked in the face with a drinking vessel. But this Turin just kind of like, fine. He's like, fine, whatever. And he just releases himself from Mablung, shoves him off, and just leaves. He takes off. And Mablung calls out to Saros, and he tells him like, dude, this was your fault. You were egging him on. Like, why would you do something like that? I think that your broken face is your just reward for what you were saying, that you deserve this broken face. And so Saros was throwing a fit, and he actually even threatens to kill Turin if he drew his sword on him again outside the halls of the king. And as Seth and I have talked about, that was probably going too far. When we talk about the elves and drawing their swords in their kingdoms against one another, like how serious of an offense that is. But regardless, like Saros has had it. He's upset. But Mablung, he's got a lot of wisdom. He's got a lot of wisdom, and he follows this up with saying, like if you guys were to fight each other, if either of you had been slain, it would be an evil deed, more fit for Angband, where Morgoth is kept, than in Doriath, and more evil will come of it. Indeed, I feel that some shadow of the north has reached out to touch us tonight. So take heed, Saros, lest you do the will of Morgoth in your pride. He's saying like there's more at work than we see here. Like there's an influence on Doriath right now, and just be careful, because you're going to bring in a lot more evil than we should have in here.
Yeah, at this, I mean, he's basically like, okay, there's something going on that isn't normal, and he's warning Saros like, hey, take a step back. Let's not allow this evil to come even closer, because something is going on that we don't understand. And what they don't know is it's just the fact that Turin's there, and everything he does, it almost is like in Narnia, and I forget which one it is, but the kid that everything you touch turns to gold. And
Yeah.
initially he's all excited about it, and then he realizes what a curse it really is. It's almost like that, where
Mhm.
no matter what Turin tries to do, even if it's with the best intentions, it turns to, become an issue later on.
Yeah, yeah, darkness just follows him wherever he goes. He's got that curse of Morgoth on him that just follows him.
Exactly. So the next day, Turin, he's got his mail fixed up. He's got his sword, the notches. It's reforged. Whatever. He's ready to go back to do battle. And so he gets his get up on and starts leaving. And he's in the woods. And Saros actually ambushes him. He comes screaming at him and ready to fight, sword drawn, shield on his arm, coming after Turin. And thankfully, Turin, was trained in the woods by Beleg. He's got great situational awareness. He's never caught unawares. And he hears Saros coming. He flips around and, his sword's drawn and he's ready. And he starts screaming and yells, "Morwen, now your mocker shall pay for his scorn." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, let's do
Yeah.
this." I can only imagine that Turin's like, this has been a lifetime of frustration that I'm about to take out on this
Oh
idiot.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And you got to keep in mind that Cyrus was going to kill the fosterling of the king. Like, what was his end goal here? Was it
Mm,
really just his pride was hurt to a point where he was willing to murder the fosterling of the king? Like, what happens if he succeeds and Thingol comes back? You
right.
know what I mean? Like, what's his end game? I don't understand it, but I guess people, and men especially, do things out of pride that just make no rational sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so they actually fight for a while, and Turin takes care of him pretty easily. He gives him a good cut on the sword arm and wounds him, and then he steps on Saros's sword. And so at this point, it's clear Turin's won. He could kill him if he wanted to. But actually, Turin decides, no, I'm going to humiliate him a little bit instead. Like, I could just kill you, but I'm going to humiliate you.
This is
And
where it gets
so
explicit, man.
it's funny because he actually says, "There is a long race before you, and clothes will be a hindrance. Hair must suffice." So if you think about the insult that he made towards Morwen about, like, oh, do the women just run around in only their hair? And Turin's like, well, you're about to run around in only your hair now.
Yep.
And so he cuts the clothes off of Saros and he's like, all right, run, take off. I can all kind of, it makes me think of like growing up when you or Steven would do something and I'd start chasing you around. Like,
Oh
you
yeah.
know that if you stop, I'm going to get you. And I'm not really trying to get you, but I want you to think I am. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so Saros is just running butt naked through the woods, screaming out like, "Oh, he's getting me!" And it's funny because Tolkien says like the tip of Turin's sword was not far behind, like just to give him a little prod whenever he started to slow down at all. But these cries brought people from all over the woods. Like, what the heck is going on? And Mablung is one of them. And it's funny because Tolkien actually says that only the swiftest runners could keep up with them. So even though there were a lot of people that would come in and try to check in on what was happening, only a few of them could keep up, and Mablung was actually one of them. And he sees what's going on, and he yells out to Turin, and he says, "Hold! This is orc work in the woods." Basically, like, I knew something was coming. I warned Saros of this last night. Like, let's stop this here. Turin, stop. And Turin actually was getting enjoyment out of this. And he replies, "Orc work there was, but this is only orc play." And it's interesting with that statement because I think Turin is saying orc work there was in reference to being
Being
ambushed.
ambushed. Yeah.
Yeah, but Mablung didn't see that. Nobody saw that.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's just kind of an interesting thing as we move forward with this little part of the story. But he's like, orc work there was, orc play this is, and he's just like, I'm having fun. I'm gonna keep
And
doing
he's
this.
and he's still admitting to just the ridiculousness of what he's doing. Like
Yeah,
that's what I do love too. That yeah, like
he's
orcs
fully
are.
aware.
Yeah, he's like, I shouldn't be doing this, but you know what? I've had it with this guy. Yeah, we're playing. We're playing like orcs, which is obviously opposite of how an elf would play or a man.
Yep. So as Turin was chasing him, there was this stream that fed to Ysgaldwin, which is the main river that goes right through the heart of Doriath. And there was like this deep cleft, and at the bottom of this cleft there was rocks. And Saros, I can only imagine, actually thinks Turin is trying to kill him. He thinks he's actually running for his life, whereas in Turin's mind, he's just humiliating the crap out of this guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, in his fear, Saros decides to try to make a leap that is just a crazy long leap. And
It's
he
not
tries.
renowned. It's not a capital
Nope.
L.
There's no capital L. There's nothing renowned about it. And right as he got to the other side, he lost his footing and fell backwards down this deep cleft onto these rocks within the stream, and he died. And at this point, Turin thinks to himself, and he thinks, "Unhappy fool! From here I would have let him walk back to Menegroth, but now he has laid a guilt upon me undeserved." Which, is it undeserved? I don't know, but at the same time, he wasn't intending to kill him. I don't know. It's kind
But
of
that's a really deep thought to have, like, because he's just like, oh crap, like this guy just died, and now that's gonna be on me. Like I'm gonna have to like feel like that was partially my fault. Like, come on, man. Like he's still even blaming Saros
for
for
his own actions.
his own actions. Yeah,
Yeah,
he struggles to take responsibility, I think.
yeah, and that is definitely a theme moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so he turned around, and I can only imagine he's like, "All right, well, the fun's over." Sheathes his sword, turns around, and Mablung and a few others are standing there. And Mablung was like, "All right, you need to come back to Menegroth. We need to sit down in front of Thingol. Maybe if you're lucky, Thingol will pardon you for this unjust killing. Like, come back with us. You need to figure it out." And he looked at Mablung, and Turin said, I I did not wish his death, but I do not mourn it. And he's like, "Yeah, I understand. Like, but he's dead. We need to figure this out." And Turin looks Mablung in the eyes. And this is Mablung the hunter. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Mablung and Beleg were both part of the hunting party that took out Karkaroth.
Yeah, yeah,
If you remember. So Mablung is a very renowned warrior himself. And Turin looks him right in the eyes, and each one of his companions that were able to catch up, and he's like, "You have two choices. You can let me go in peace, or you can attempt to kill me, because there's not enough of you to take me alive."
Mhm.
And Mablung, again, he has wisdom, and he just kind of shakes his head, I can imagine, and he goes, "Well, one death is enough. Fair free." Basically saying, this is what you wanted from the beginning, to be sent away on your own to do your own thing. And he's like, "One death is enough. We don't need to have any more. Fair free."
Yeah, and here's where that's kind of like the last we see of Turin of the chapter. But yeah, obviously there's a dead elf in Doriath, and people want to know what happened. And so Thingol and Melian, they come back from their little vacation, and Thingol was really distressed. I mean, this was one of his counselors that died, and that his foster son Turin had renounced his fostership, like his sonship. And so he's like, what just happened? I wasn't gone that long, was I? Like,
Yeah.
what happened while I was gone? And so he calls together all the witnesses of what had happened, and he's like, tell me what you saw, because I want to understand what's going on. And so Mablung, he was a good friend of Turin. He spoke to the king, and he told him what happened. But Thingol could tell he was speaking as a witness, sure, but as somebody who was a friend of Turin, and so maybe more favorably on Turin's side than he should have. And so he calls him out on it. He goes, "Are you just speaking to, like, are you a credible witness?" Pretty much is what he's asking.
Right.
And I love Mablung's response. It's, again, full of wisdom. He says, "A friend to Turin I was, but I have loved truth more and longer." Obviously, he's very old. He's been around a long time, and he's loved truth more and longer. So, he's pretty much saying, like, I'm telling the truth. I do love Turin. He's my friend, but truth is more important to me.
Yeah, and when I read that, it really kind of, I try not to get political on this podcast at all, but it really is a reflection to everybody in the political landscape of, yeah, we all have our biases. We all want, whatever our party wants or whatever. It's obviously more nuanced than that. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't seek out what your, right versus left thinks. You should seek out
Mhm.
the truth. What is the truth? And then make your decision. We can disagree on, methods and all that, but we should all be able to agree on the truth, which is, I think, where this world is going horribly, horribly wrong right now. Is people are not only receiving different truths from media, from statistics. Like, you can lie about anything, and you have two people who have good intentions that in their mind they both believe the truth, and in reality there's only one truth. And I think that's why, having like a moral framework in your life is so important, is that you can fall back on that moral framework and be like, okay, in this situation, what is the truth? And then once you have that truth, we can discuss, the political stuff, but everybody should be able to agree on the truth.
Yeah, and maybe not on the political side of things, but even just a theme that I've seen with my students is, when we go on trips or, something happens, kid does something stupid, but I'm told about it. Like, there's this whole thing like, oh, no snitching. Like, you can't snitch on one another. It's like, it's not snitching. It's the truth is more important. Like, I'm going to love that kid no matter what. I'm going to give grace for that kid no matter what. I'm not going to like, do something drastic. I mean, if I have to, maybe, but more than anything, I just want to know the truth. And all these kids like, nah, I'm not snitching on my friend. He's my friend. I'm loyal. And it's like, yes, you should be a loyal friend, but sometimes that means the best thing, the most loving thing you can do is be truthful about what happened. And that's exactly what Mablung is saying. He's saying, I love Hurin, but here's also what happened. Here's the truth. And Saros was asking for it. And so, yeah, just an interesting dialogue from there. But after hearing all this, Thingol, he took to his own counsel. So he's starting to think to himself, and he was upset with Saros for all that happened in the hall and placing the blame on him. But the acts of the next day, he said, the shaming of Saros and the hounding of him to death were wrongs greater than the offense. So he's thinking like, yeah, Saros shouldn't have egged him on. But at the same time, like what Hurin was doing to him was definitely more, like that was more than the payment that Saros needed to pay. And so he pronounced his judgment and banished Hurin until he returned to sue for pardon at the feet of the king. So pretty much like you're banished until you come back and beg to me and try to regain my friendship.
Yeah, and at one point he's thinking to himself, he's like, this is an ungrateful foster son, and in truth, a man too proud for his state. Which, if you kind of break that down, an ungrateful foster son, Thingol probably feels betrayed by Hurin to some extent. Like, I raised him from a 9-year-old boy. I gave him a safe home. I taught him wisdom and all these different things. And he goes and does this. And then he's also like, he's too proud for his state, meaning like he is, after all, he's not a king of the elves. He's not, an elf lord. He is just a man. The House of Hador. Yeah, he is. But his pride is still dictating his actions further than, he should be able to.
Right, and that's a completely true statement too. I mean, that's a good diagnosis of Hurin himself. What we see here, thankfully, Beleg comes. He busts into the room. Maybe does one of those Aragorn open the door swing, sexy hair flowing. But he comes into the room and he's like, "Hey, King, hold on." He asks, "Can your judgment be withheld until he had spoken?" Because even though he was late coming, he had some information regarding the case, if you will. And so Thingol's like, sure, yeah, no problem. But remember, up to this point, no one saw the initial action. So nobody saw the ambush. That's not been talked about at all. So at this point, nobody saw the ambush and the actions. And so Thingol's interested to hear what this new news could bring. And so Beleg brings in the maiden, who I said would come back later, Nelas. She comes back in, which, again, she hates the halls of Menegroth, so she was reluctant to even come in here. And when she does come in, she's kind of starstruck, and she's like, "Wow, I'm really talking to the king." And she has this moment, and the king's like, "Hey, get to the goods. Like,
get to the point here. Like, come on."
Yeah, she's kind of like stuttering over words, like, "Oh," she's just kind of in shock. But then finally, she calms down and she recounts everything that she had seen. And so she told him about the ambush because, again, she had been watching over Hurin in secret, so that was also really important. But Thingol reminded her to speak carefully in the Court of Doom, and so she replied, "So Beleg has told me, and only for that I have dared to come here, so that Hurin shall not be ill-judged. He is valiant, but he is merciful. They fought, Lord, these two, until Hurin had bereft Saros of both shield and sword, but then he did not slay him. Therefore, I do not believe that he willed his death in the end. If Saros were put to shame, it is shame that he had earned." Again, saying, like, I don't think Hurin meant to kill him. I saw what happened. They were fighting. He gave him mercy. And
Yeah.
again, mercy is not receiving what you deserve, right? So he deserved, if Sauros was trying to kill him, like that was his payment. He deserved to Turin to just turn around and kill him. So Thingol replies, "Hey, hold on. The judgment is mine." He's, again, the king. The judgment's mine, but what you've said will govern it. And then he questioned her closely. He talked to her and kind of, again, trying to sift out the details of everything because she is the only eyewitness. And again, she knew and loved Turin as well. So can she really be trusted? So she interrogates he interrogates her a little bit more.
Yeah, I think I like how in this instance Thingol is actually deemed rather wise. I mean, he's normally kind of rash and emotionally driven, it seems.
Mhm.
If you think about the stories of Baron and Luthien and other times he gets to make decisions, um, he's kind of just driven by emotion. And in this situation, I think he's like, there's so much emotion going on based on my foster son that I brought in. He's like, I need to really understand all the pieces of this puzzle.
Yeah, for sure. And so eventually he comes to the point where he's going to pardon Turin, and so he sends out messengers to seek out Turin to deliver this message. And so that all happens. Night comes, next day happens, and Beleg comes back to Thingol and Melian. He's like, "Hey, I can probably find Turin. I'm really close friends with him. I'm obviously the most skilled woodsman that you
I taught
have.
him everything he knows.
I taught him everything I know he knows. I probably know where he's going to be. Can I go out and find him?" And surprisingly, maybe this request delighted Thingol, and he's like, "Yeah, absolutely, man. Whatever you need, I'll give you. Whatever you need to go on this quest and find Turin, absolutely." And Belloc the Strongbow makes a request, and this request is what really shapes the rest of the story, as we'll see. It's a very fateful request that I don't think at the time in making this knew the implications that it had, but he asks for a sword. A great sword named Ankalakel. Is that how you say it?
Anglikel.
Anglikel. Yeah, sorry. Anglikel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But this was a sword of great fame, and it was forged by the dark elf Ael.
Without going too much into the backstory of this sword, Ael, the dark elf, he he snatched up Turgon. Like I said, I'm trying not to go too deep into this. He snatched up Turgon, if you remember from Gondolin. Turgon is the king of Gondolin. He snatched up his sister, who wanted to leave Gondolin and travel and see some stuff. He snatched her up, forced her to marry him, and then after a while, they had a kid, and she ran away. And he was really renowned for his sword making, and he made these two swords. One his son Maegling took, and then this one that he got. And as Eorl went searching for his wife, he ended up in Doriath, and Thingol was like, "Hey, I don't like you. I don't like you here. But if you give me your sword as like penance, kind of, I'll let you
Mhm.
stay in this area and kind of camp out while you're trying to find out where she went." So that's how Thingol came about the sword. He never used it. It was given to him by the craftsman Errol, however you say it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was wondering how he had that if if it was forged by somebody else. But um, yeah, the name Anglikel was because of the iron that was used to forge it had fallen from heaven as a blazing star. So again, this sword is the real deal. Iron forged from a blazing star. And Seth made a note here. Most people who have been into Lord of the Rings probably know the Aragon series Inheritance, and so Seth made the note that it reminds him of the bright steel that we used to forge the Rider's swords and the Inheritance cycle, which cycle. I would agree. I didn't make that connection, but yeah.
Yeah, a quick aside. I wonder if Christopher Paolini had read this when he went over that. I was like, oh, that's a really good way to have a unique type of iron to make these swords with, because it's very similar. I don't know if he did or not, but I
I
don't
bet
know.
he did. I bet he did. He took a lot of stuff from Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's world to
It's
create his
just
own.
such a small, obscure thing that he made like a very prominent part of
Yeah,
his own story. So,
sure.
I mean, if he did, I don't really have issue with it. I think he took an idea and expanded on
Yeah,
it in his own way, in a creative way, personally.
sure. Yeah, and I love the Aragon series. I think it's a very Very fun book. I reread it again recently, like as an adult, and it's like, yeah, it's definitely more of like a teen. At least the first one, is because I
Yeah.
mean he was what 17 when he wrote it. Which, dude, the guy is jacked now. Holy crap! I
Oh
saw
yeah.
that on your Twitter, and I was like, oh my goodness, this
Yeah.
is the dude that like is a super nerd that wrote these books. I was like, wow. Uh, but
Yeah, he's
anyway,
stacked.
far side here. But as Thingol turned the hilt of the sword to Belag, Melian looked at the blade, and again we got some foresight, some great wisdom from Melian. She goes, "Hey, there's malice in this sword." Which you think about Tolkien's works, you think about like the inanimate objects that aren't inanimate, the
Yeah,
ring,
exactly. Yep.
swords, things that just have some power to them that's unexplainable, that is evil, and that's what she's sensing here. She says the heart of the smith still dwells in it, in the same sense of the ring. The heart of the Sauron still dwelt in the ring, and that heart was dark. It will not love the hand that it serves, neither will abide with you long. So she's saying, like, this sword is not going to do you very well because it belongs to somebody else and it knows that, which is just kind of a creepy thought. I don't think I'd want to have a sword on me that knew that I was not its master and was going to do something to make sure that, it didn't work that way. But
Yeah, when I was reading that warning, I read it a few times and I was trying to think what is going through Beleg's mind as the sword is being handed to him. And she says this because neither will it abide with you long. That could be interpreted in a couple of different ways, like, oh, somebody's going to steal it or it's going to break or like whatever. And I assume that's probably
or
what Beleg thought, or potentially what happens later happens. And, it's just that warning that she gives him. In his own mind, he's probably like, it's just going to break or get stolen or something like that. And it's just like,
yeah,
unfortunately, no.
yeah, and part of him was probably like, well, but this is an awesome sword. Like, I need this.
Yeah.
I want this. But as we'll get to, the sword does have a little bit of a mind of its own, unfortunately.
Yep, it sure does.
Yeah, well, that was probably one of the longer chapters we've done so far. But any final thoughts on chapter 5?
Not much. I know I keep saying like this is where the story starts to take off, and I feel like a lot happened in this chapter, and it did. I mean, with all the crap with Saros and Turin, chasing him around. I love that. But now, starting in this next chapter, Turin, finds a group to kind of lead and start doing what he wants to do for the first time in his life. He's free of his mother. He's free of the elves. It's him, and he's gonna live life the way he wants to, and we'll see how that turns out for him, starting with this group of guys that he comes upon.
Yeah, those outlaws. But until then, we can't skip our segment of Gondor calling for aid. So we're breaking into the halls of Meduseld in Rohan, and we're shouting, Gondor calls for aid. Will you, Rohan, answer? So if you enjoyed the podcast, please light your own beacon by sharing it with fellow friends and fans. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you'd like to share your own Tolkien story with us, please do that as well. Something similar to Caleb's. Doesn't have to be long, just a paragraph or even a couple sentences of what Tolkien has done in your life. We'll share it here on the podcast just like we did with Caleb's. So email those to me at wecpodcast@gmail.com. But as Seth mentioned, we're jumping into chapter 6 of Children of Hurin next time, where we will see him and his band of outlaws. But until then, we thank you for joining us for some well-earned comforts, and we bid you a very fond farewell.